Ben Laguerre was 20 years old, just out of the Army, when he went to trial for the rape of an elderly woman in 1984. To prove his innocence, he put his faith in the judicial system, but an examination of how that system worked in his case reveals it may have let him and itself down. The 12 who would sit in these chairs to judge accused rapist Ben Laguerre were finishing a 4-week judicial marathon, some already casting votes in a dozen other cases. Now they were weary and anxious to go home, but this defendant, looking at them, was anxious about something else.
All white people. I asked Peter, can we get a couple of blacks and a couple of Hispanics and a couple of Asians so that we can pick from them?
Peter Ettenberg, Laguerre's lawyer, did complain, but Judge Robert Mulkern ruled the all-white male jury could stay. So the trial began with the usual instructions. Gentlemen, don't talk about the case among yourselves. But that's exactly what they did.
On the way back upstairs, we had 2 or 3 of the jurors that said, oh, that damn spick, he's guilty. That's before oh, that damn spick, he's guilty. Look at him sitting there.
Did the foreman or anyone mention to...
Yeah, he told him, keep your remarks, no remarks. Keep it to yourself.
Today, the jury foreman refuses to discuss what was said. Some jurors told us they remembered nothing prejudicial, but one who wants to stay anonymous does.
Nobody came right in and said they were going to hang this person because he was black or anything like that. I mean, I'm sure somebody was upset and might have some kind of racial slur came out, but it was not, nobody was out to hang this person just because he was a colored person or anything.
Of course, no one back in the courtroom heard any of the jury's remarks, so the trial proceeded. The prosecution played its ace early. The 59-year-old victim, in a thin and nervous voice, described how a man in jogging shorts, who may have worn socks, attacked her and threw her to the floor, tied her hands and feet. He raped her and terrorized her, she said, for hours. Who do you know that person to be? Asked the prosecutor. Answer, that chap right there. She pointed to Ben Laguerre. After the jury heard those 4 words, it didn't seem to matter what came next.
The biggest thing was the lady identified him, and the biggest point that we were delivering about was this person, for I believe it was 10 or 12 hours or 8 hours, I'm not sure really, that she could not forget this person's face.
It didn't matter to the jury that the police investigation presented no evidence linking Laguerre to the crime.
He's the one. That's what she said. He's the one that did it.
As the jury expected, Laguerre insisted he was somewhere else that night. But they didn't know an investigator hired by Laguerre's attorney had told him of 5 alibi witnesses who would place Ben far from the 9 o'clock crime scene.
I seen him out front of my building. He was up at my house for a while, talked and all that.
What time was it?
It was between 8 and 9:30.
The jurors didn't know Pouliot and 4 others claimed they were with Ben at this apartment complex and at this cafe because his attorney never called those witnesses to the stand.
He was here that night. All this was supposed to be going on at 9 o'clock. Well, how could it have happened with him if he was here with me, you know, passing time?
And why didn't you say that in court?
I didn't go to court.
Because?
No one contacted me about a court date or anything.
And finally, because Laguerre's attorney did not call an expert to explain it, the jurors also didn't know the one eyewitness to the crime, the victim, was, according to her daughter, a schizophrenic whose powers of identification experts could have testified would be severely impaired.
There's this tendency for them to believe that because there are shared characteristics, that things are identical.
So if someone were black and another person were black?
They may believe them to be the same person.
But ignorant of that, the jury of 12 went into deliberations on Friday, memories of the victim's identification of Laguerre fresh in their minds. By Monday, even juror Nowick voted guilty.
Because of her evidence. She was the only one. That's the only thing that